Today we have Brad Collett. He is the executive director of the Tennessee RiverLine. He's also a professor in the Department of Plant Sciences and I believe the School of Landscape Architecture. He is going to give us an update on the Tennessee RiverLine. Hopefully you've heard of it. It is a very cool project. I was looking back, he actually gave our very first seminar when we started this series in almost to the year or almost to the day, 5 years ago in 2021. So it's pretty cool that we are getting this update 5 years later. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Brad and let you take it away.
Great. Thank you for the introduction, Alyssa, and Deb, also for the opportunity. It is hard to believe that it's been 5 years since that initial talk, and if anyone was around for that initial presentation, we were talking likely at the time about a lot of aspirations and ideas of things that we envisioned happening in the future. And if I could go back and talk to that person 5 years ago, I think that we'd be quite proud of what we've been able to accomplish and what I'm going to share with you all as progress towards that work. I think that we did some testing ahead of time, so everybody should be able to see my screen. It is an honor to be here as a faculty member, as essentially a department head within UT Extension, as we continue delivering the land grant mission of the University of Tennessee through the Tennessee RiverLine. And I did want to spend just a little bit of time for many folks may not know, the work that I had done as a faculty member in the Department of Plant Sciences, which is really kind of formative to where the Riverline Initiative began and its trajectory as well. I joined the faculty in 2011 after having practiced landscape architecture and private consulting for 7 years, but had the opportunity to become a part of the School of Landscape Architecture in Department of Plant Sciences back in 2011. And at the time, I became very interested in both the opportunities and challenges posed to the state and to the broader region with the projected population growth that was forecast at the time. And you see here this graphic that's probably about 10 years old, but still, I think, as relevant today, thinking about our major urban centers and how they were projected and have continued to grow, and how even the pandemic and technology have allowed some population redistribution into rural areas, and thinking about how that growth would impact water resources and how, things like infrastructure practices that are legacy within our landscape versus contemporary practices, what are things that we could be exploring and recommending as ways to improve water quality, to protect water resources through infrastructure practices, also through development patterns. How do we kind of scale that idea up and not continue to consume valuable farmland and forest land for to accommodate that growth, but how can we be looking at grayfield and brownfield redevelopment as a strategy for water quality stewardship? And so thinking across, various scales and also thinking across systems in a book that we published in 2016 for Southeast Tennessee Development District, thinking about systems level strategies from development and waste management and transportation and education. How can we be operating at a regional level for water quality stewardship as well? And that then gave way to a project or in a studio that I was leading and started 10 years ago in 2016 called the Tennessee River Studio. It was very much what we would call an ideas studio, a laboratory for exploring ideas and opportunities relative, in this case, to the entire 41,000 square mile Tennessee River watershed. And this was my brave group of pioneers in this course, six landscape architecture students and six architecture students who embarked on an exploration of the legacy of the Tennessee River Valley as a landscape, principally through the lens of contemporary water resource management in TVA, and how do we carry a legacy forward into the 21st century with a new series of challenges relative to climate and population and that sort of thing. And so this group of students, cut their teeth in learning about the watershed through mapping exercises, looking at natural systems as well as built and engineering systems, that again are very closely associated and connected to waterways, in particular the Tennessee River, as a 652-mile river from Knoxville to Paducah. We also had a chance to visit this landscape. We planned a 5-day experiential learning trip over the course of the fall, which gave us, kind of a front row seat to see this landscape as a continuous 652-mile territory, as opposed to, how we commonly experience it here in Knoxville, which might be very episodal and kind of fragmented. Seeing that landscape as a continuous system made a significant impression on the students and on myself in understanding the value and importance of this landscape as a cultural place, as an economic territory, as well as a very important and fragile and impacted ecosystem as well. It gave us an opportunity to visit with various stakeholders, from farmers to aquatic biologists to riverboat pilots to small county mayors, all of whom's livelihoods are affected by the river and whose work and professions and disciplines also in turn impact the system as well. So kind of understanding their stories, their challenges, and their opportunities. And it also gave us a front row seat to see some of the threats posed to the health of this landscape from things like natural dynamics of shoreline erosion, but how that affects property loss, how that affects sedimentation and habitat quality based on what our response to that challenge may be, microplastics pollution, the vulnerability of the river system to things like energy production and waste management systems, as well as, quite honestly, and we may experience this here in Knoxville as well, how difficult it can be to experience this landscape if you don't own land or if you don't have a background in boating and fishing that might drive you to that place. And so I think one of the ideas, or anecdotes that led us to from these experiences to where we are now with the Riverline is the understanding that this quote here suggests that no one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they haven't experienced. And so this motivation of really reintroducing people in a region to this landscape really drives the Tennessee Riverline Initiative. More theoretically, and Charles Sims, I know, is a One Health scholar, referred me to this theory that has also been powering our work and informing the work as well. This idea of the extinction of experience and how cultural changes in recreation habits, how we're engaging socially, urbanization practices, inequities of recreation opportunities based on culture and systemic challenges as well, all lead to things that are impacting um, how we view and how we experience the natural world around us. It changes our health, it changes our emotions, our attitudes towards not only nature itself, but towards agencies and organizations that are charged to steward those places and to protect those places as well. And it also affects our behavior with things like philanthropy and how we vote and what we advocate for, what we don't advocate for, again, based on how experiences with nature is changing over time. And I think reflexively we might say, well, the solution to that is just let's get people outside, let's recreate. And I think that the pandemic certainly accelerated that with showing us the importance of accessing recreation places, natural places as a part of our mental, spiritual, and physical health. But also, it showed us how quickly those systems can become overwhelmed and how recreation unto itself could be a extractive or detrimental activity if not properly managed. And so the title of this talk really is through the lens of a novel idea that we continue to incubate and to explore, this idea of recreation as a restorative practice, and how we can be preparing information resources and investing in infrastructure of access that are intentionally designed to have a restorative benefit, whether that be economically or from the standpoint of public health and quality of life, but also restoring connections to culture and place, the places that make East Tennessee, the Tennessee River Valley, the Tennessee River landscape so unique as a cultural and natural a place of cultural and natural heritage. But also, how can recreation activity and infrastructure be investments in environmental health and resilience? And I'm hopeful that you'll see this as a kind of continuous thread through the rest of my talk, where we'll share some insights to what the RiverLine initiative is, and how we're making progress towards shared aspirations for a regional vision as well as local priorities and opportunities as well. So again, we are an initiative of UT Extension, having cultivated this idea as a member of the faculty and doing the work on the weekends and nights and making the case for this really needing to exist as a standalone entity. University leadership saw fit to support that idea and transitioned us from a faculty initiative to a department within UT Extension in 2023. And I've since been working full-time as an executive director with a full-time staff that I'll introduce here in just a little bit. But this work is also possible through partnerships. Many partners, many more than I'll have the opportunity to acknowledge here, but UT Knoxville and Tennessee Valley Authority have invested significantly in the initial successes of this work, and we want to continue to acknowledge them as principal partners of the initiative and appreciate their ongoing support as well. Those experiences that I shared earlier relative to the student engagement in the River Studio really led to, again, the core concepts of RiverLine as a project. One of the ways that we talk about the project in a public forum, so as to create something that's accessible to the general public, is this idea of thinking about the river as a park and really transforming the way that we see our waterways as a part of our public space system. When I would say park to most people, that would be ball fields and playgrounds and hiking trails and that sort of thing, which absolutely fits the bill. But how do we think about our waterways as part of that system of public spaces? Because today, as the river exists, already provides an abundance of recreation opportunities, both on the river, swimming, boating, fishing, paddling, an abundance of activity on the water. The river in many places is a commons, a place of gathering for special events as well. So the river itself and its reservoirs is a 470,000 acre landscape that is a part of this concept of the river as a park. As is the second element, which is the public lands that are adjacent to the Tennessee River, which include national parks and recreation areas, state parks, wildlife refuges, local parks, all of which offer unique recreation experiences along the river. And in many cases, this is how individuals feel comfortable experiencing the Tennessee River, which is next to it, whether it's biking, hiking, wildlife viewing, cultural, visiting cultural landscapes as well. So the 700,000 acres of public landscapes that are along the Tennessee River are also a part of this river as park concept. The final and third piece of this is the river communities. So the main stem of the Tennessee River touches 32 counties, 43 incorporated cities and towns in 4 states, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, and Kentucky. And each of these communities have shared stories relative to Native peoples, Trail of Tears, TVA, Civil War, and so on. But also, these individual communities have their own unique connections in the ways that their place was shaped economically, socially, culturally by the river in the past, how they view it and engage it today, and how what their aspirations are for its future as well. And so, river communities are an important part of this river as park idea. When we are able to challenge ourselves to think about those three elements, the river adjacent public lands and communities as a synthetic and connected landscape, that's 1.2 million total acres of public space that constitutes this river as park idea. And just as a scale of for frame of reference, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is 550,000 acres. So we're talking about a place that's more than twice the size of the most visited national park in the park system. And so, again, at a regional level, we're looking at a very significant resource that is able to drive quality of life, economy, and health. We also want to think about this river as park concept at a local level. And so, this is a drawing here that shows the river as it moves through Knox County. And you can see the green areas are those existing local parks. And the river colored here as blue provides a level of connectivity to those places and across the county that is otherwise difficult and expensive to achieve through things like greenways and other types of trails. And so it's not to say that we shouldn't be investing in those things, but if we think about the river differently, we have a high level of connectivity already in place. And it's within these places, within this regional and local manifestation, where the constellation of different amenities and investments may already exist that are providing access to the river as a place. But also within this suite of amenities like overnight campgrounds, river access points, pavilions, wayfinding and educational signage, connecting systems and public spaces. What we're seeing through the work of the RiverLine team and the River Towns program is there are aspirations and new investments in these types of amenities to improve access and experiences and those restorative outcomes that we've already talked about as well. And so with that regional to local idea, we can also think about the Riverline user as a similar profile to a system like the Appalachian Trail, where maybe the most iconic, but the smallest group of users would be those who want to traverse the entire system in one continuous trip, or individuals who might have shorter trips and may complete the entire trail over the course of their lifetime, or the largest user group, as is also consistent with the Appalachian Trail, is your day user, an individual who wants to experience the river by recreating on or along the water for a day or a part of a day as well. So again, a range of different opportunities for engaging this landscape as an opportunity for quality of life for area residents, as well as an opportunity for positioning the Tennessee River corridor as an international destination for heritage tourism, recreational tourism, as well, with all the health and economic benefits that come along with that. As I transition to kind of what we talk about as the impacts and benefits of our work, we like to draw comparisons to the heritage of our region relative to large scale regional projects, and build upon that legacy as well. So, the Appalachian Trail and TVA, as diagrammed here, have kind of iconic images of the TVA as a system of dams, or the Appalachian Trail as a walk along the ridge, the Appalachian Blue Ridge. But in both cases, the authors of these systems had much more strategic intentions that were powering the work. In the case of Benton MacKay's vision for the Appalachian Trail, thinking about how can we build a community of stewards and to protect this landscape of the Appalachian region. And you see that in its, a century later, how ardently protected the trail and the corridor are as a result of, 100 years of usership and the culture that's built around that. And similarly, TVA had a much more complex system of desired outcomes that live through the kind of iconic image of the dams. And so we don't necessarily put ourselves on the pedestal with those initiatives, but we think strategically as well about how the Riverline is an agent for impact in how we can celebrate the beauty, diversity, and history of the river and river landscape, how the initiative connects people and communities to each other. I think that's really one of the things that we've been able to show the greatest impact in to date, is that the connectivity and building a community of individuals with shared interests and shared aspirations for their communities as well. And then also to be a catalyst for those restoration practices, right? So this idea of economic development and economic vitality in outdoor recreation, the outdoor industry is a major part of our nation's economy at more than 2% of GDP. This slide actually is out of date as of a couple of weeks ago when US EDA released that the industry now has a $1.3 trillion economic output as of 2024 and employs hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people across the country at 3% of the total workforce employed through the outdoor industry as well. So this is not an accessory. This is not an incidental part of our economy. It is a central part of economic development, in particular in rural areas. Chattanooga really has set a blueprint for how recreation and public access to the river can be a major economic driver, appreciating more than $5 billion in private investment behind public access investments that have fundamentally changed the way that the community connects to the Tennessee River. And so, we have the opportunity to really rewrite that story and translate it to smaller communities at different means and capacities and different opportunities as well, and appreciate no less significant economic benefits because of the importance of things like quality of life to major economic choices. There is the outdoor industry that is direct spending relative to recreation activities and gear, but also, more importantly, the quality of life that recreation can create within a community, creates a place where workforce wants to live, and as a result, a place where businesses want to locate, so as to have a stable and engaged workforce as well. The second element of the catalyst pillar of our mission is with regards to public health. And interestingly, the discipline of landscape architecture in the United States, with Frederick Law Olmsted, is grounded in social reform for public health. And so we build upon that legacy even through this work at a different scale, in how providing access to these places that have restorative capabilities for physical health and physical activity through active lifestyles, as well as the mental and spiritual health benefits of being outdoors as well, certainly resonates in our work and in our messaging. With regards to being a catalyst for enhanced and inspired resource stewardship by providing new ways to experience and see the river landscape that, again, may be inaccessible otherwise to many people. We begin to see some of the symptoms of, again, infrastructure practices, natural dynamic systems, as well as invasive aquatic species as well. And so it gives us an opportunity to educate and build awareness around these challenges, and to engage a stakeholder group, engage a community in the mitigation and care of these challenges and of this landscape as well. And the final piece of impact that drives our work has to do with acknowledging the barriers that many in our communities face to recreation experiences and spaces, whether that's discretionary time and income, or physical abilities, or systemic cultural challenges relative to recreation experiences. We need to acknowledge those barriers, and we work intentionally to make the river and the Riverline a place that's accessible for all as well. So, this idea, this aspiration of what the Riverline is, was so compelling in 2019 when we launched a pilot program, that we had to select five pilot communities from the 17 that applied, many of whom had just heard about Riverline through the RFP. But after that experience, we knew that we had something that was really resonant with local opportunities and aspirations, and we needed to develop a way to help communities make incremental progress towards what their own goals were, as they would see themselves within this vision for the Riverline and enhanced recreation access. And so what we did in 2020 and 2021 is we designed not a project, not a park, but we designed a program. And that program is the River Towns program that today we work with 23 communities that include 58 cities and counties in 4 states who are on a voluntary basis have enrolled in the River Towns program because they see it as a vehicle for themselves to reach their goals and aspirations as a community. And so you can see that landscape of participation mapped here, again, across all 652 miles of the river. I won't go into great depth about what the program is. Be happy to talk with folks if that was of interest later on. But suffice to say that it is intentionally designed as a multi-stage program that allows a community with as an abundance of resources and capacity as Chattanooga does to a community that has the least amount of resources and capacity. It provides a platform and a framework for all of those communities to be successful in the way that they define success for themselves. And we worked with communities to actually define what that is. We worked to build a team of volunteers that are committed to carrying the work forward. We focus on programming and activation of the river as it is today early on, and then transition to visioning and identifying opportunities for new infrastructure investments in the second stage, that then transitions to designating a local water trail and pursuing implementation support for aspirational projects in the third stage, as well as marketing and promotion. I'm very fortunate that I don't have to do this work anymore on my own. We've built a team of extension professionals across a variety of different disciplinary groups, all of which represent key gaps in capacity that we acknowledged and observed during the pilot phase of the program. And so we have team members who supports recreation and environmental education programming, as well as the overall facilitation of the River Towns program. We have professionals who are landscape architects that support planning and design of new infrastructure projects for campsites, trails, river access points, riverfront parks, etc., all of which are catalysts for these outcomes. We have a team member who supports our communications and marketing efforts relative to public relations, as well as destination marketing and tourism development. And myself and a couple of folks support our financial elements with a development director in the UT Foundation supporting our philanthropy and fundraising efforts as well. For the balance of our time, I really just want to share some images of the work that has already happened through the River Towns program. As I mentioned early in the stages of stage one of the program, we focus on building capacity and comfortability and facilitating safe river recreation activities. In many communities that we work, they don't have parks and recreation departments. They don't have parks and recreation professionals. And so we're helping individuals get comfortable in facilitating these experiences for, in many cases, very beginner level recreationists. And a lot of those activities are paddle programs on the river, on tributaries, sometimes in a swimming pool as a way to, again, build comfortability and confidence. A lot of recreation programs also happen along the river, and there are festivals, there are interpretive hikes, there are concerts, a lot of different communities, again, finding an opportunity to be expressive of their own place through the river town's expectations of facilitating one recreation program each year. Another way that our team supports recreation activities, we offer an annual Paddle Sports Leadership Academy, which is a week-long opportunity at no cost to the participants to come to Knoxville and to gain skills in the kind of technical elements of paddle sports. They get two ACA certifications for community paddle sports leadership, but also developing and overcoming their own challenges or concerns relative to just being on the water and basic leadership skills as well. So we're proud to have offered this program now 4 years. The fifth offering will be this summer, thanks to ongoing support that we're getting from the RAI Cooperative Action Fund, as well as the Lyndhurst Foundation now in the Chattanooga area too. We also do activations and programming relative to stewardship. And so, again, how do we inspire new generations of river stewards, folks who are invested in the care of this landscape? And many times, a lot of communities participate in this element through river cleanups. We work with the Tennessee River Rescue in Chattanooga, as well as River Rescue at Imes, to support those activities, as well as cleanups throughout the year. But also, these programs can be interpretive hikes or wildlife viewing and photography courses, or one that's becoming really popular is bat box building, which there's a number of caves along and on the Tennessee River where there's spectacles of bats leaving the caves at sunset. And so it gives us an opportunity to talk about the importance of bats as a part of a healthy ecosystem as well. In the activation space, and a key part of the River Towns program are the leadership team members. These individuals in total across 23 communities, I think there's about just over 300 volunteer leadership team members that support the planning and delivery of these types of activities. And in total, to date, our 23 River Towns communities have facilitated close to 300 recreation and stewardship activities that have offered nearly 30,000 participants new ways of experiencing and understanding the Tennessee River. So great progress and great impact in that space. I like to think of, the numbers I think are certainly impressive, but more importantly are the individual stories and lives that are touched in ways that that are really compelling and fun to learn about and hear about as well. Also thinking about what is already there before we, challenge folks to think about what could be there in the future is, supporting destination marketing and spotlighting our river towns communities, providing individuals with resources like our interactive web map or paddle itineraries, ways that they can plan trips for themselves on the Tennessee River. So where are the marinas? Where are the boat ramps? Where are the campgrounds? Where are the outfitters? Where's TVA undeveloped recreation land where they can camp? So all of these tools live within our Plan Your Journey resources that are available on our website. We've also recently launched the River's Edge blog, which is more of a long form way of providing information and reflections on heritage, unique stories related to the river. And this is a plug for anyone who may be interested. We are looking for guest writers and guest contributors to the blog. If that's something that you're interested in, please feel free to reach out and be happy to connect you with Lila as well. We also help facilitate large-scale events, and Paddle Georgia was an example of that. Just this past summer, we helped welcome 400 visitors from across the region and across the country to experience the Tennessee River landscape, and it was kind of a discovery experience unto itself, where individuals had the chance to kind of see this landscape in a new way and come to learn about it as well. We incorporate these educational elements and interpretive elements into our wayfinding and signage, which is starting to move out into the landscape. It's fun to see examples of our signage show up in Rivertown's communities as well, and again gives us an opportunity to talk about various natural and cultural heritage elements of the places where they're located too. Um, In our system of Rivertown's program, we also support communities through visioning and planning for the future and thinking about what their aspirations may be for a renewed or a transformed relationship with the Tennessee River through infrastructure development. And so we facilitate a public process that engages area residents as well as area leaders in having a voice in that dialogue, in creating unique and engaging ways for folks to share their ideas and their feedback as well. In stage one, we focus on goal setting and offering recommendations about how those goals can be reached. In stage two, we focus on placemaking and how, through a conceptual design process, we can support communities that would otherwise not have access to landscape architects and designers think differently about a place like this, which is in Saltillo, Tennessee, but really kind of a proxy for many different boat ramps in rural communities that might be the only public access that that community has to the river. But how can a place like this be transformed into a more inclusive space that still serves its function for boaters and anglers, but also functions as a community center and a public space along the river as well? And within these concepts, we then have the opportunity to bring that restorative from the ecological element into the projects, where so often, a lot of shoreline is treated with riprap, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But how can we be bringing ecosystem services back into the river's edge while also maintaining stability and promoting social engagement as well? Our commitment to being inclusive and engaging public voices continues through and after the design process, and how we share these ideas and continue to gather feedback and talk about implementation strategies. This has been something that we do now professionally, but we also continue to engage students in the process, whether it's in the classroom or as interns. I think this has been one of the great value adds of the program for communities, and we see this arc of activation and programming in leading to this type of infrastructural success in communities like South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, where they host one of our largest community-led events each year that has led to an increased interest and curiosity about public access to the river, that led them to rezone part of their wastewater and water treatment facility as a public recreation space, and have since, with the vision that we've been able to help them develop, have earned $2.5 million in infrastructure implementation funding from state and federal sources as well. And so we're excited to see this type of work continue. We also recognize that we are limited in the number of communities that we might be able to serve in kind of a one-to-one, almost consultancy relationship. And so we're currently working with a firm, Scape Landscape Architecture, with support from the state of Alabama, state of Tennessee, and Appalachian Regional Commission to develop planning and design guidelines, recommendations for infrastructure design and engineering practices that can be used by individual consultants as well. And one of the main territories of this project actually works at the river's edge and looks at the issue of shoreline alteration and responses to that, and thinks creatively about how we can be, introducing, best practices that are alternatives to those solutions, and then, implementing and, exploring through research what the impacts of those things might be, and then kind of feeding that information back into the planning and design standards that might show kind of an optimum situation of what the shoreline could be. And then in other cases where different challenges in land uses might not allow for that, what are other practices for again a healthy shoreline that is stabilized and provides ecosystem services, but also permits recreation and social access as well. I want to wrap up here by just talking a little bit about kind of where we're going. And one of the things that we're excited about and should be hearing about in the very near future is a $21 million project proposal that we put forward to the Appalachian Regional Commission that would allow us to move some of our tourism development and demonstration infrastructure project priorities forward. And so this proposal includes four main goals, which is to expand and optimize the River Towns program, to build demonstration projects that show restorative recreation practices at work, and then to develop tourism and storytelling tools that help connect people to the heritage of a place through recreation activity. And so, we're again optimistic that we'll be selected for a full application for this program. This is a map here showing where those demonstration projects are located and kind of at a site level how the restorative recreation practices would live in a project like this riverfront park in Bridgeport as well. And so we're optimistic for that. We're also through the planning grant that we're just wrapping up. We have a interpretation and storytelling plan that will guide efforts moving forward. And again, thinking about restoring that connection to culture and place. I'm going to wrap up here by talking about, we've talked about a lot of the things that we've been able to achieve relative to numbers of events or numbers of infrastructure projects and that sort of thing. I stand by the thought that what we've built to date that is of greatest impact and of greatest value is actually a community of people, individuals who have been drawn to the river landscape and to each other and to their place in a unique and a powerful way because of the work of the Tennessee RiverLine. And it's been truly humbling to see that come to life. We gather once a year as a community through the Tennessee RiverLine Summit, and we just had that in Chattanooga just this past at the end of February. It's an annual activity, and if folks on this call or who watch this recording are interested in being a part of that community, we'd certainly love to welcome you to it. And it's within that community that the memories and the legacies that we aspire to have and to leave as an initiative really come to life. And as a faculty member, but also as an alumni and as now as a father of a Tennessee volunteer, it makes me very proud to know that UT is so very forward in its support for this work over the past 10 years and moving forward as well. And we're also proud that the university is getting some recognition for that investment. RiverLine was one of three case studies that was submitted with UT's APLU award application is in the Innovation and Economic Prosperity program. And this past year, they were with that application, they were given the highest award in that category. So very proud to be a part of moving that land grant mission forward. I'll finish by saying that we don't do this work because it's easy. It's quite complicated, it's quite difficult, but we do this work because we know the legacy that we have the opportunity to leave for future generations who will benefit from the investment and the care that's coming to the Tennessee River landscape through the Riverline initiative. So again, I thank the folks organizing this series for the opportunity, Alyssa, to share these insights. And if we have some time, I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have about the work so far.
Thank you so much, Brad. That was a wonderful presentation, and it's just an incredible project. Like you just said, it's so complex. It's just kind of mind-boggling, but it's really cool and very important work. We do have plenty of time for questions if anyone wants to put something in the chat or unmute themselves. And maybe while we're waiting, I'm curious, how many people are able to do the Paddle Sports Academy each year?
Yeah, so a great question. In order to maintain required ratios of students to instructors, at this point the cohort is limited to 10 people.
Okay.
We're looking to expand that, but usually it's between 8 to 10 is the number that we've had each year. It is a commitment of time at being four days in length, but it's been a very fulfilling program for those who have participated. And in addition to the skills of recreation, facilitation, and leadership, I think one of the other great takeaways from that is just kind of a community within a community of folks that have gone through that program together.
Gotcha. April, I think you've got your hand raised if you want to
Yeah.
go ahead with your
Hi.
question.
Hi, Brad. Thank you for the presentation. I really enjoyed um, listening to what the Tennessee Riverline is all about. I was hoping you could elaborate and maybe explain a little bit more about um, your relationship with the University of Tennessee. From I guess my maybe naive understanding, Tennessee RiverLine is a nonprofit organization that kind of came out of the University of Tennessee Institute of Agriculture. If you could just elaborate more on how Tennessee RiverLine formed, I would really appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you for the question, April. So as I mentioned, this program, this initiative grew out of the Tennessee River Studio, which I started teaching as a full-time faculty member in 2016. And one of the 10 visions was for this a trail system along the Tennessee River that has kind of evolved over the 10 years to what it is today. And very early on, it gained the interest of like Tennessee State Parks, TVA, and who invested in some small grants, some seed funding that helped get the work going as far as further developing the concept and building a consortium of people that were helping kind of move it forward. We did get a grant from the National Park Service, the Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program that helped bring some organization to that. And so before there ever was an organization of Riverline employees, there was what we call the Capital P Partnership that was essentially kind of functioning as a nonprofit, but still outside of the university. That then led to the pilot program, which gave us proof of concept to say this really has the opportunity to and needs to scale. And so we put forward a proposal still as a full-time faculty member to start hiring full-time staff. I loved and continue to love the student element of it, but students have the habit of graduating, which is what we want them to do. And you got a lot of knowledge and experience that walk out the door. And so we made the case for full-time staff and started building that in 2020 with the commitment from UT and TVA to do that. As the program continued to grow, I began to realize that I wasn't doing either directing the initiative or serving as a full-time faculty member with advising and service and all the other responsibilities that come along with that um, in the way that I wanted to. And so I love teaching. I miss it still today, but I recognize that this was something that I needed to make a case for work that I would be doing full time. And so made that case. And fortunately, the university leadership and at the it's I stay at the time, but they're still all in place. Recognized that as something that needed to happen and supported me transitioning from faculty to staff essentially, and now transitioning the initiative from creative activity within the School of Landscape Architecture to essentially a department within UT Extension. So Extension has um, I'm sure that you know about the 4-H, which is what they kind of hold at a high level as a department or as an initiative. They have Family and Consumer Sciences, and they have ag and natural resources and community and economic development. So we're a department within the ag and natural resources and community and economic development arm of UT Extension. So we don't exist outside of the university as a nonprofit. We don't have a board of directors. We don't have bylaws in that way, but rather we function um, essentially as a department within UT Extension.
Thank you so much for that clarification.
Yep.
We've got a question in the chat from Timothy. He said, working on a conference presentation and would like to highlight Chattanooga and the Tennessee River. What is a good resource for history and data?
Great question, Timothy. Are you thinking more about the Chattanooga and river relationship as in a historical context or in kind of the contemporary, urban context, or maybe both?
I guess I can just come off mute and ask you.
Yeah.
Can you hear?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can hear
Hey,
you.
Brad, it's good to see you again. Like I was healthy development coordinator years ago when we did when you did the pilot programs in
Yeah.
Benton County, and we did a couple of those conferences or whatever. But yeah, I'm doing the National Outdoor Recreation Conference in Minnesota in May, and I'm kind of highlighting some of our built environment projects across Tennessee, and I'd like to use Chattanooga as kind of the big kind of urban, kind of a big, uh, built environment, economic development, just kind of like all those things. So probably more on the kind of contemporary uh, information, just kind of.
Yeah. So there's actually three organizations or people that come to mind that I can help you connect with. One is the River City Company. So they're a nonprofit economic development agency that has for more than 25 years now been the steward of visioning and plan implementation in the city of Chattanooga, and they're currently working on a $30 million fund, capital project for even kind of turning the crank one more time on their 21st century waterfront, making it more humanized as they would say. So I can introduce you to Jim Williamson at River City Company. Brian Smith is with the city of Chattanooga, and he has been leading their National Park City initiative. So uh, they're certainly the first, if not the only city in the United States that is a part of this National Park City program that's led by National Geographic internationally. And so, he I think would be a great resource to talk about recreation um, beyond the kind of riverfront in downtown Chattanooga. And the third
Right.
person I would suggest you connect with is Gail Loveland with Outdoor Chattanooga. And so one of the important keys to their success that we're borrowing here in the River Towns program is the activation side.
Mhm.
So not only how do you build things that create active lifestyle opportunities, but how are you actually activating them with programs and recreation activity.
Yeah.
And so Gale leads Outdoor Chattanooga, which their mission is to do just that, including
Mhm.
on the river, but also more broadly across the
Right.
abundance of recreation opportunities that Chattanooga has. So I'd be happy to send you a summary of those folks in an email,
Yeah.
and if they're of interest, to make a connection as well. And wish you luck with your presentation. It sounds like a great conference.
All right. We have time for like a final question before we sign off here, if anyone has anything else.
If if I can, I actually want to plug in the last couple of minutes that we actually have a survey open right now. Part of our ARC implementation grant that we've applied for is to actually run a Tennessee River Symposium. And this is something that it's a long-term goal. It would be, if awarded, wouldn't be held until 2031, which seems like a long way away, but probably isn't as far away as we all want it to be. But it's a 12 question survey that's intended to help bring feedback and ideas of folks working in related spaces or just in the university to bear on shaping this concept further. So if you have 10 minutes to share your thoughts about the symposium concept as is currently presented in that survey, we'd certainly welcome your feedback.
That's great. Thank you.